What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a very special. Why do I always start like that? Because it makes it sound like a very special Different Strokes, and that's not what I mean. But a special edition of MediaScope. We are still on hiatus, everyone, but I wanted to come on today because there has been a lot going on in the world of media, tech, and pop culture, and we want to discuss it all today. People are coming in, and so I thank you all. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'll introduce myself in just a moment. Let me say hello to everyone coming in first. We've got people on Instagram now. Instagram, I want to let you know that when you make comments, they won't populate. So I won't be able to see your comments. Well, I'll see your comments, but I can't put them up on the screen. So just hang tight and I'll get to it and I'll actually physically read them out. I see I-95 Express Courier. How are you, my sister? Good to see you. Harper St. Brandon is here on the Instagram side. ACB Therapist, Alicia Baxley, and a whole bunch of other people. So I'll come back to you all in a moment. Thank you so much for being here, Instagram. But it's not just the Insta of the gram. We've also got folks here from YouTube. We've got Twitch. We have LinkedIn, and we also have Facebook, a whole bunch of places for this great and important conversation with important panelists. I'm so happy that I have friends and panelists like this. Let's see who else we have here. Let me say hello to Hannah Boyd Miller. She says, hello, I'm happy I received my notification. Well, Hannah, I'm so happy. I called you Hannah. It's Hannah. Hannah, thank you so much for being here. It is wonderful to see you this evening. G says, hey to everyone. And guess what? She's actually one of our panelists. Welcome. And we have, is it Maria Lively? Hello. Please say, please, if you don't mind, phonetically do it so I'm not calling you the wrong name all evening. But thank you so much for being here, Maria. Who else do we have? So this is who we have right now, and more people are coming in as we speak. We have a lot of people on right now. So make sure that you're saying hello. Make sure that you put your comments in the chat. We will read them out as long as they are reasonable comments. But you know what we're going to do right now? I don't want it just to be me. So I'm going to bring on the wonderful panelists. But first, in case you don't know who I am, what's up? My name is Tachi. I'm a media professor, filmmaker, media content producer, and I'm also a journalist. And I'm happy to be here this evening, getting a little more of my MediaScope family in. All right. So right after this, you know what? I enjoy that music that we played, or that I played earlier. So guess what? Right after that, we will have our panelists back on. Stand by. Okay, I don't know why it didn't unmute me, but I'm unmuted now. Panelists, welcome. How is everyone?
Doing pretty good.
Okay, good. And look at this wonderful couple up in the all together, and that's wonderful because we can see you on the vertical side. By the way, we are streaming vertically and we are streaming horizontally. So if you are joining us on Instagram or on the vertical stream for YouTube, you're going to see us kind of vertically, like you're watching TikTok or something like that. But you can always, for the best experience, I suggest that you come over to the tubing of the U, what we like to call YouTube, so that's where the party is, YouTube. So I suggest that, but you are fine if you don't want to come over. So, gentlemen, How are you? Let's start with you all since you're in my upper right-hand corner. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and then tell us about your experience with watching America's Next Top Model. I think you both probably watched it originally. So if you watched the original, yeah, and you're saying yes, so go ahead and do that, please.
So I'm Ronald. Hi, everybody. I grew up, I guess, basically watching America's Next Top Model. I was there from inception. So watching this docuseries, this 3-part docuseries, was a doozy. Like, I guess when you're watching it as, a kid, you're watching it with, I guess, jaded eyes or whatever the saying may be. But yeah. I think the world is still reeling all of what we witnessed from the docuseries.
Yeah. Hi, for those that don't know, my name is Chris. I also grew up watching as an adult Top Model, and I watched it for the photography because I was a photographer, a young budding photographer, and I wanted to get into like fashion. And I will say, rewatching this docuseries, this 3-parter, was very eye-opening because I saw it through a different lens, and it was very eye-opening and a little overwhelming,
almost disturbing.
Yeah, very disturbing.
Disturbing is a great word for it. Yeah. If nothing else, let's go ahead and introduce our next panelist. Here we go.
Hey, I am Gwendolyn GR Houston Jack. I also watched America's Top Model the very first time around. I had a love for fashion because I studied it. We tiptoed into modeling because I thought, so I wanted to do it. I kind of did it. And I was like, I don't have the chops for this. So we have a couple of experiences that come to light, but like everybody else, this was different. Seeing it now, you're like, wow, we did that. Okay. All right, let's talk about it, please, because we got something to talk about.
Well, I want to start with this. So I thought I remembered that you said that you did a little foray into modeling. Can you kind of set the stage for us, even if it wasn't, a big foray into it? Can you kind of set the stage for us in terms of the expectations that you had when you were getting into modeling?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with, there was a time in like the 90s where everybody who was thin was seen as, I should probably get into modeling. So there were a lot of modeling schools back in the day that pretty much scam people out of their money. This is not that conversation. But when I got into New York, I thought, okay, well, let me see, I'm here for school, but maybe we could try some other things, help out with the fashion shows, try to do other stuff. But if you're going to do runway, as in like haute couture, you need me 5'9" minimum. And I was 5'8.5". They don't play halves. You're either in it and you're not. And if you really think about it, they don't want people, women or men, who take away from the clothing. You need to be this walking mannequin. So no T, no A, right? And if you have a little bit of that, it's not going to happen. So I did get a spread, not like in a trade magazine, nothing to really brag about, but I did send copies home to the parents. But yeah, it is a hard thing, but I was looking like a lot of people just at runway modeling, completely ignored all the other modeling opportunities that do exist, which I found later on in life.
Interesting. So what made you say, yeah, this is not for me. I don't have the chops for this?
When you get in those rooms and you believe that you have a table that you're, posed on, there's no table. It's like on the board. You can't touch the board. You got to hold the pose. The lights are extremely hot, the bulbs, I should say. And it's just, it can be a little hectic. It can be. And I just thought, I don't have this. And I like to eat. You know what I'm saying? Which at that time, that was not the thing. Like, that just was not the thing. But what was really promoted back in the 90s, think George Michael and all the supermodels, Linda, Isabella, all the supermodels, Heidi. It was all runway. It was all haute couture. And that's fantasy land. Like it's not ready to wear. It's not where the regular people reside. So to get on that runway, that's a hard feat. It really is hard. And if you have any kind of melanin, it's one out of all the other models. It really is a pick me situation. So,
Yeah, and
Mm.
I think during that time that you're talking about, that's exactly what it was. Because I think that times have changed and it's a little bit different now. You see a lot more diversity, and it really took people such as like Rihanna to bring it to the forefront to have that diversity. Not only do you have people of color, you've got all shapes and sizes. You've got people with disabilities that are on the runways modeling now. So times have definitely changed. And when you really look back at America's Next Top Model, it's like, how the heck did they get this show on the air? But that was the sign of the times.
But it's interesting that people that we keep saying, or the conversation keeps going towards, well, that's what happened back then. Those were the times. You could also say, well, that's what happened during slavery. Those were the times. They just whipped people. And so it's almost like making an excuse for what
I
happened
get
back
that.
then. And
Okay,
I'm not saying
so-
you're saying that, but go ahead.
Here's my thought. I know that in this moment, in this year of our Lord, it feels like Monday morning quarterbacking, and it is, because we are using our awareness now to talk about then. We're not saying that it's right now. For those of us on this panel, I remember buying gum shaped as a cigarette with powdered sugar.
Yeah.
And actually blow the smoke out of it.
Yes.
I remember sitting in the back of my father's truck with no seatbelt, just like just out in the bed of the truck. I remember a lot of stuff that we did. I remember smoking on the plane.
Yeah.
Right. So we have done some stuff. The idea is when you know better, you should do better. So I'm not saying that it's the sign of the times. It is what we thought what was. When I think about what Tyra said she wanted to do, she wanted to change the narrative, bring more diversity, this, that, and the other. I was like, okay, let's do it. Because somebody has to fight for that. But she didn't really fight for that.
Go ahead. Yes.
Can I just say too, if you look back then, you had Survivor, you had Big Brother, you had American Idol. America's Next Top Model was literally the first of its kind as far as reality competition. You did not have a format like this. So Tyra's idea was truly something, quote unquote, innovative, right? And it's been said before, she had no guidelines, she had no guardrails as to what was appropriate then, because she was really creating the mold. And unfortunately, the mold broke because so many things fell apart with it. But like you said, we look at it from a perspective now when we didn't have that perspective back then.
Absolutely. And to Gwendolyn's point, when you know better, you do better. But has the modeling industry been doing better? Actually, this is what I am trying to look at, and I think we're all trying to reckon, because even though, of course, this is like, what was this, 2003? 2003. So it's over 20 years ago that so 20 years ago, of course, we were in a very different place. You did not have, you're talking about not just a competition show of this type, but a Black woman who was producing a competition show of this type. You just simply did not have that. And so I'm wondering whether or not she felt she did not have the I don't know what word to use, but it's that she didn't have the opportunity not to comply, if that makes any sense. That she felt that she had to do this because there are no other alternatives. I'm the only one. Go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Because if you remember in the very beginning when they were trying to shop this around, they went to all the major networks and they all passed on it. And then, here comes UPN, this new startup network, and it had a new president. And they were at a point where, all right, now they need to build programming. They both took a chance on one another, and they didn't know if this was going to work or not, but they wanted to try. And after the first season's success, it was about, all right, well, how do we top it? How do we top that first season? Once you fall into that trap, there's nowhere to go but down in a way, because it's like you're going to always try to push the envelope and do things that you think that are going to bring in more people, because it's all about the numbers. It doesn't matter who you are. When you work for a major network, it's about bringing those ratings and bringing those dollars. And if you're not doing that, they're going to cancel you. So now, how do we get people to come back again this year and watch after they saw all the shenanigans that we did last year?
On top of that, too, they also had a budget after that first cycle.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of Top Model came shows like Fear Factor, right? So now they also have to compete with this other extreme show. So they have these girls doing extreme things because the audience is craving different things.
Yeah.
Gwendolyn?
Okay, I thought about this, right? Because I thought I keep going back to her intent for the show and what she wanted to do, but what she ended up doing. In my mind, there are two people. If you really want to go for something, you're the person who's like, I'm going to put it all on the line. And if I have to lose, then I will lose. So I will be blackballed. I will lose my job. I will be ostracized if that's really what you want to fight for. Because somebody has to say, I'm going to put on the line. So it sounded really great to say, well, I want to create this thing where there's more diversity and blah, 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 blah. But in the end, that took a back seat to what became, I'm really about this entertainment. I'm not willing to do all of that to really make this push and make this move into changing the fashion industry right now. That wasn't really what her end game was, in my opinion, looking at it. Because if you really are going to go for something, somebody has to say, okay, I believe in this wholeheartedly. I'm going to put it on the line. That's it.
And as she said, if you remember in the documentary, she said nobody was a sacred cow. And we will get, was it sacred cow, sacred horse? I don't know.
Cow.
Sacred cow.
Some animal that has 4 legs. So nobody was a sacred cow, right? So we'll get into that in terms of what exactly that means. But I think she was also acutely aware that they could get rid of her at any point as well. So you do have to be down with the shenanigans if that's the thing. So go ahead.
Okay, so and that's my point. It goes back to, I get what you wanted to do, but if your sole focus really is to change this narrative, then why not do like a modeling agency? Like take people under your wing and do that. Or is it really about this entertainment and my name and whatever else? That feeling of putting something together. Something can you have both? I'm not so sure, because you're going against a machine, and the machine at some point is going to be like, yeah, no, but somebody, if you really want that change, somebody has to knock down that door or break that glass ceiling and put something on the line and lose something so someone else can get it in the end. I just didn't get that from her.
No, excellent thought, because in my opinion, you cannot change the machine from inside the machine because you're one of the parts of it. So I applaud people who say, well, I want to do X because I really want to open doors. I applaud you for it, but for such a large system that's so ingrained in the status quo, it is very difficult to make change from inside the machine. That's just my opinion and my thoughts and my observations. So it was a losing battle to begin with. And I think she may have also gone in there quite naively, like, oh, I can make a change. I could do this. And then it turned into something that she didn't intend. And she just kind of had to go with it. This is my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think here's the other thing too. You know, we have to look at the time frame that this was done. From 2003 until when it went off the air, social media wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of course you had like MySpace or whatever, but it's not what we consider a modern day social media. You know, you've got, and not even like the Facebook and the Instagram of it, but all the different types of social media platforms. If these contestants, that these young ladies and also the young men that were on the show later on in the cycles, if they didn't make it really on the show, they could at least leverage it on social media to make themselves bigger and to go out there and have careers. They didn't have that, and it was very, very well documented in the series. Let's talk about Shandy, how, you know, she came from a small town, was working in a Walgreens, excuse me. And then after everything that happened to her, you know, she ended up just going right back to her small town, going back and working in that Walgreens again. Whereas if this was to take place now, she could at least leverage social media to
Mhm.
propel herself into something maybe a little bit bigger.
Well, see,
Absolutely. Go ahead.
if I may add on, here's where I get conflicted, because she talked about how the grand prize, but it would have this amazing contract, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. But a person who's been in the modeling industry, she was on the runway, but Tyra started to grow. She got TNA and she got kicked off the runway. But Sports Illustrated loved her. Victoria's Secret loved her. So it's not like she didn't know there were other doors that could have been open for modeling. Catalog models get a lot of money. They get a lot of money. No, they're not pulling 10,000 for like an hour on the runway, but they still get regular work. I look at it now and say, well, why didn't they at least help them do that? Why didn't they give them that avenue to say, okay, well, it's not working here, but you can still go work here. That's still modeling work. But that didn't even happen. Not even that kind of resource was given to them. And I thought, like a lot of people, well, surely something great happened for them. Surely after all of this, something great happened. But no, that was not the case. And those resources existed in that time without social media.
You can model for Sears, absolutely. But is that the sexy thing to do? And I think they were trying to position this show as the dream job, the dream modeling job. And again, I don't even know what Tyra had at her disposal in terms of resources. I'm sure she had them, but that did that fit the dream? Did that fit the model of what this show was supposed to be, for somebody to go and be a catalog model or to model for like the Gap or something? I don't know if that fit the thing. Hold tight for just a moment, because I see you all wanting to jump in, but I just want to say hey to everyone. What's up? Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. I see the comments coming in, and I'm going to take some in just a moment. In case you don't know who I am, I welcome you. My name is Tachi. I'm a media professor, filmmaker, media content producer, also a journalist, and I am the host of MediaScope. We're still on hiatus, but I came off of sabbatical for this special conversation because I had to talk about it. Pop culture is one of my things. We have a couple of comments that I would like to get to. We have Jazzy, what's up, says, I think the hard part for me with this show was about creating careers, and this show actually busted their careers from the start. Interesting point. We also have Bryson, yes, and he's always giving us the deets, UPN to VH1, absolutely. The UPN to the CW, right? It became the CW. Let's see. We also have Ms. Elise Stallworth, who says, good evening. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Elise. Also, we have, okay, this is interesting. I hope I'm saying your name right. Lacole, you need to operate the system. Otherwise, you can't change it. 100%. We're trying to, build tables that we don't own. That didn't make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say. So build tables that we don't own. Jazzy says right on the money, 100%. Also, let's take some thing over from the Instagram side. We have Harper St. Brendan, who has joined us. Also, Joni Red Butterfly. Hello, Soror. Welcome. Brian Garvin says hola, and hola to you as well. Trish is here. How are you? Joy of Love. Welcome in. Marquita Morgan is here. Charlene Austin. How are you, my dear? She says, this is what I never liked about the modeling industry. I feel all shapes and sizes and heights should be able to model 100%. She also says, don't get me wrong. I loved America's Next Top Model. I was a faithful watcher. I didn't know a lot of what we saw in the documentary went on behind the scenes. I'm very disappointed in Tyra after seeing this. Bestie is here. How are you? She says Tyra thought it was cute being a diva. Interesting. Also, Success 22. How are you, Mel? Good to see you. She says hello to everyone. DJ Mick Ford is here as well. And lots of us, Scotty, what's up? Lots of other people are here as well. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's get back to the conversation. So you all were about to say something. I hope I didn't disrupt your flow. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I just want to go back a little bit to the intent, something that Gwendolyn had mentioned about Tyra's intent. I
Mhm.
think that one of the more disturbing parts about this docuseries too is she focused on what her intent was, but then these girls got on this show and completely, it's almost like her intent completely went out the window because they harped on the girls' sizes, the girls' looks. But if you want to get girls from all different sizes, all different shapes, all different backgrounds, why are you trying to mold them into what the current models then were?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think I even said it on our podcast. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and unfortunately, it kind of went to hell because I feel like her intentions completely went out of the window. Because if you even look at the girls who won, minus Whitney, she was the only, I think, plus size model to win. She was a size 6. I don't know why you consider that a plus size, but she was the only plus size model to win. What about the rest of the girls who you wanted the show to be intended for?
Mhm.
So I think that's a big part of the disturbing part about it is like, did you really intend this to be something different? Because it wasn't anything different. You think about like the way even Miss J, when she wrapped her hands around the one girl's waist and was praising how tiny she was. It's like, what are we doing here? What are we really doing here? And nobody took ownership of any of the foolishness.
May I
Oh,
add one
no.
more thing
Yeah,
before you
absolutely.
go on? Getting on a high fashion haute couture runway is like getting a spot in the NBA or the NFL. There's a lot of beautiful people out here. There's a lot of people who have crazy talent. Not everybody gets a job in the NFL, and everybody gets a job in the NBA. So even going into it, it was going to be a less than 1% who could even get on that stage, literally. So I can't help but go back to us. Like, I get that you want to promote this sexy thing, knowing full well that everybody does not get the opportunity to walk on those kinds of runways. She knew that. She knew that. So if that's the case, I still feel in my heart you could have done something after you have taken these people and, for all intents and purposes, exploited them for entertainment and give them some sort of leg up. That's the least that could have been done. The least.
And think about what
100%.
happened to Danielle Evans. She even said it
Yes.
in the docuseries. You saw me in my struggling. You saw me in my struggle, and you did nothing about it. And
Mhm.
Tyra even told her verbatim, "I knew there were doors you would not be able to walk into." So
Yes.
why put these girls through this?
Yeah. The other thing too that really was disturbing to me, and which made like the whole series, when you look back at it, kind of pointless, was the fact that you know, a lot of these girls, even after they came off the show and then they had looks and they thought that they could do this, they were never going to be selected because the people in the fashion industry who actually had to hire these people, the modeling agencies, didn't want to send them out on ghosties because they did not look at them as models. They looked at them as reality
Reality.
stars first who wanted to become models. That doesn't mean you're a model.
Yeah.
100%. And this, if you look at many of the girls' stories, I've been watching a lot women. They were women at the time. Many of them were girls, but they are now women. So I've been looking a lot. Obviously, when you watch this, if you're on YouTube and you watch one thing, a whole bunch of other things pop up because of the algorithm. And so I've been seeing a lot from the former contestants in terms of what they were saying. And many of them did say the fact that they were on the show did not do wonders for their career because, yes, especially back then, you were seen as a reality star and not a model. And to your point, Chris, now you can, well, whatever, you can take social media and make that work to your advantage. You can at least salvage something of your
Yeah.
career. But back then, there was social media, but it was nowhere to the point that we have it now. I want to go back to your point of where you were talking about the waist and how Miss J praised basically how small the waist was. Angelique, remember Angelique? She was on from 2000. She was on 2011, and then she had won the All Stars when they came back. She was on 3 times, I think. She won All Stars, but they snatched the title from her because they found out that she had worked as a call girl in the past. So she actually won the All Stars, but they took the title away. And then in 2014, she came out and said that. One thing that she says, she actually does a podcast with a couple of other people regularly. And she said, and I watched this actually last night, that she grew up, she's actually from Buffalo, New York, ironically, but she grew up really thin. She was not what the guys considered to be sexy or whatever. She was like real thin. And she said for the first time, she got praised for what she was bullied about on America's Next Top Model. So the standard was thinness. This is who it is, or this is who she is. And it felt good to her because she was praised rather than bullied for it. So looking at this from the other end, I think, of course, when we look at size and size inclusiveness, we tend to look from the other end. But it's interesting that somebody who has never been the it girl, bullied for being thin, now feels a place in that modeling world, albeit it's not it's not what the type of attention that probably is the most affirming attention, but she felt a place. Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
I understand that. I was given my father's body, so high school, junior high was not kind to me. Yes, I'm a Black woman. I had no hips, no bumps, no lumps, and it was just awful. And then you find this industry that loves you being straight as like a piece of paper. You're like, oh, you're amazing. Yeah, it feels really good. It really does. You're like, oh my God. But but you can still see yourself as, but I don't have anything going on over here. I don't have any. So I completely get what she means because, I was picked on for being entirely too thin. Completely get it.
But therein lies the problem with the show. And going back to the whole standard, Tyra wanted to break the standard, right? And yet she fed into it.
Yes.
That's all she did. She completely fed into it.
She fed the beast.
She did. And again, I don't think I really do believe that her initial intent was to try and make a change. I really do believe that. But you get caught up sometimes. And
well, I mean, think about it. She got success from this.
Yeah.
She was elevated from even more than what she was as a runway model and being on covers and stuff. She had the #1 show in America around the world. I mean,
exactly.
That does something to you.
Well, that's what I mean. She got caught up in it. She got caught up in the success of it all. If it didn't do so well, maybe she would have taken a step back and said, this is not so. Because let's be clear, these ladies were hazed. That was some serious hazing that was happening. It's just that we don't call it that, but that was hazing. So maybe she would have taken a step back had it not been so successful. And maybe she would have questioned a little more had it not been as successful. But because it was a success, because she was making money from it, because this was also leverage for her next step up, whatever that was going to be. Go ahead.
It's funny how you mentioned that because I thought about it. I remember in my past career how I didn't want to be a manager because everybody I saw were just really sucky managers. And it was someone who said, you don't have to do it that way. You don't have to be like everybody else. So she's coming from a place where she has experienced some really awful things in the fashion industry. She experienced going to a show and not having someone be able to do her hair appropriately, not having the right makeup. She's done that. So why repeat it? You didn't have to repeat it. It was a choice. But like you said, perhaps it got into her head. She realized that people really do like seeing people traumatized. And yes, we're all voyeurs. Those of you who rubberneck when there's an accident, when you see the train wreck or whatever else, you're like, yeah, we're all voyeurs. So I get that part. But again, it goes back to this was your intent, but then you found this, in so many words, this other drug and decide to feed that habit and put other people, their livelihood, their future career, their feelings, all of this, you put it all at risk for yourself.
Well, here's the other thing. I'm sorry, you got to talk to it. Here's the other thing too. Like, here's this Black woman doing something that no other Black woman was doing in the industry at that time, and you don't want to lose that class. And I'm not trying to stick up for her, and I'm not trying to justify the things that she did, but I'm trying to look at it at a lens of, all right, here I am, this one lonely person trying to do this. one, being able to just to get this on a network and to have this platform, you know what, maybe just being able to have it on a network and listening to whatever these executives are telling me to do to keep it on the air, I'm just going to do that because at least it gives me a voice and gives people an opportunity, however I get to that opportunity.
Exactly. That could be the thought process. And again, we're not trying to make excuses for whatever she did, but it is interesting to look at the other end of it as to the why. We don't know the why, and she's not owning up to the why.
That part.
She has not taken any, none of these people have taken any responsibility for the harm that they've caused these young ladies. And obviously there was some harm done. Everybody lives with there were 24 cycles of this. And I think that means 2 shows per year they did, basically.
Yeah.
And so, or 2 seasons per year. So it's just disconcerting that through all of this, nobody wants to take responsibility for it. But you know what? I'm not surprised, because usually when it comes down to these types of things, it's very rare that you see someone, you know what? I was wrong. Very rare that you see somebody take responsibility for that, especially if you are still in that world and maybe still trying to do some things. You definitely then won't. And since she said something about cycle 25, which I think was metaphoric for something rather than because if you actually are trying to do a cycle 25,
Girl.
Anyway, not after this.
I think the problem to your point about no one taking responsibility, I think what made it worse is everyone talked around responsibility. The only person that actually said, oh wait, that was wrong, that we should not do it, was Ken Mock when they were talking about the whole death photo shoot. That was the only time anyone said, okay, that was wrong, we should not have done this. But everything else, everybody just talked around what was required of them, as opposed to just saying, okay, dead to rights, this was wrong, we should not have done this, we apologize to these young ladies, and how do we move on from it? We never got that from, we got that from nobody, the Jays and Nigel included, it was very sad to see.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk about the Jays and Nigel, because here's the thing, once you sign this contract, you're in the world. Unless you are doing something to actively say this is not right, you're part of this as well, in addition to us. Excuse me, which is why I kind of named this the social impact we have, because let me give you an example. So years ago, this had to have been about 2000, and then I'll get to some questions and comments because we have a lot. Years ago, this had to have been about 2012. No, probably like 2013 or 14. There was a reality television show called, what's it called? Sorority Sisters. So I don't know if anybody ever saw it, because it really only lasted for like 2 episodes. So it was young ladies who happened to be part of NPHC organizations, the 4 Black NPHC organizations, or Divine 9. And so it was supposed to be a show about, we didn't know what it was going to be, but those of us in the Divide, we're like, oh, let's watch it and see. Well, this show was horrific and horrid. One of them was like a stripper, and also, so we were like, what? Oh, hell no. So all 4 presidents of these NPHC organizations called the producers, or got in contact with the producers to get them to get it off the air. They were not going to do it. They said, no problem. They went after all the sponsors, every celebrity that was a member of any of these, or they said, make sure Shonda Rhimes is an AKA. They wrote to Shonda Rhimes and said, please don't make sure that they are not advertising. And she was like, done. They canceled it after 2 episodes. So the thing is, it can be done, because we, the viewers, were like, you're not going to portray us in such a light, and they cut it off. The interesting thing is, this was not done here, because it felt like nobody had a stake in it, which is why we had a stake in it, which is why we cut that off. But nobody, regular people, quote unquote, didn't feel like they had a stake in this, and they were too busy watching the crash
The train wreck.
Yeah, but here's
Yeah.
the thing though too. One, it was an era where you had like Jerry Springer and all those other like talk shows and stuff like that. But then also, I think everyone came to this series getting something different out of it. So like I said, when I first started watching this, I really wasn't even watching it for the models. I was watching for the photography. I wanted to learn how to do the photo shoots like Nigel and all the other photographers were doing. That's what I went there for. And I mean, I guess I was a little bit oblivious to the storylines in a way, not really paying attention. So like, for instance, the talking about the young girl where her mother was the victim of gun violence. And then they put this young lady in a situation where she had to represent someone who had just been murdered via gun violence. I never even really thought about that when I was watching it. I'm just like, all right, well, I get what he's trying to say about the how to move her body and stuff like that. But now looking back at this, I'm like, yo, how did they even get this on the air? Why would they do this to this young lady? Like, you're re-traumatizing her. The other young lady who has a drug addiction, and they made her play a drug addict. She ended up dying years later from an overdose. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Go ahead.
I would say two things are happening. One, like, we didn't know as viewers, as consumers, that we even had that power. Like, think about how many times you have now learned that you can actually tell people what your name is and stand on that and advocate for yourself. I mean, think about, like, in terms of women, that, you know, is perfectly fine in the past for someone to do catcalling. Just shrug it off. It's not that big a deal because everybody else had put up with it. And then you realize someone says, no, it's not okay. It's not appropriate. And I am going to put my foot down and say no more. We didn't even think that perhaps we shouldn't be celebrating Jerry Springer and all of his fights, which he went from, I want to have a regular Phil Donahue conversation, to like, you know what, forget it. Or Maury Povich, I want to have that chat. Okay, I'm just going to start doing some you're not the father and you're not the father, right? People go to places. But I don't believe we understood as consumers how much power we actually had, because up until that point, technology and other things were like this far off idea that's only for certain people. And that cog has changed. That machine has changed. And so now you're at a place of, no, I don't think so. But I will say this really quick. There has always been somebody, though, in the back trying to push that needle and trying to make that change.
Yes.
That part is there. And although we see some of these faces who have worked with the machine, they're not the fighters, though. They're not the fighters.
No. Part of the problem is there's not a united front either when it comes to those types of things. So if there's no unity, there will be no change. Let's take some of these comments and questions. I think I said hello to Bryson and to Miss Elise. Also, Kelly, how are you, my dear? Good evening. Good to see you. Also, Kimmy, I know I saw you before. You're here somewhere. So Kimmy, here you are. Kimmy, hello. Welcome in. And I didn't say this, but I think I missed this, but I want to say this. Jazzy says, intention without care creates harm. Absolutely. That's excellent. And Kim still has to watch the documentary, but interested in hearing what the takeaways are. We I don't think we have time today for all of the takeaways, but there's quite a bit. Beverly Campbell is here. Hello, Beverly Campbell. Welcome in. Also, Classic C Gem says, blessings. Yes, it's interesting. The last episode I watched was with Eva. It was the main episode I watched. I like the concept, but not the bureaucracy of behind the scenes. Let's see. And there is something I want to say for this in terms of the accountability. It's on us, and I agree. I don't think we realize what power we have, but the reason I brought up the reality show that about sorority sisters was because it was within the same time period, yet one group knew that they possessed an amazing amount of power and another group did not. So I find that dichotomy very interesting. So here's another example. I have a lot of examples. When I used to be the operations manager for a group called Live in Color. They're like a hip hop dance group. So if you know the name, that's because they were on the first season of America's Best Dance Crew, and Mario Lopez was the host. We actually performed in San Francisco, and they were at the time casting for the show and said, "Oh, you guys don't even, we'll take you to the front of the line." So basically they knew they wanted us because they barely auditioned, right? So there was one episode that I was livid about. They have costume people, and during one of their dances, they had on blue and gold. Well, I noticed something interesting about one of the blue and gold. And for those of you in MPHC, you're going to know this. So I noticed that there was a sigma and a gamma, but the bottom of the row had been torn off. I said, you really think I don't know? Maybe they don't know or think other people didn't know, but I saw that. And of course, Sigma Gamma Rho was annoyed. Now, I was annoyed too, because I called the producer and explained that's not what you do. Those are actually symbols that have copyright and trademarks to them. You can't just use them willy-nilly. You can get sued. So the thing that I hold them responsible for is that, but I also held the dancer responsible for that. I said, you went to FAMU. You understand what this is. Why would you not say something? And he was like, I know. If you know, then open your mouth and say something. And I understand you don't think you have the power, but I'm like, that's when you call me and I get on the phone and do something about that, right? So I think sometimes we operate in silos. Sometimes we think we don't have the power, but we haven't opened up our mouth to say anything about that. So this whole reality thing is extremely interesting, because I seem to have my hands in it at several points, but you do have power. You just may not be on your own, and you may have to pull in some other people to get that power heard. And I think that's probably what needed to happen here. There was way too much that went on and too many people that were involved. This was for how many years? At least like 12 or something, 13 years that this went on. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And now, after the fact, after the serious harm was done, now we're looking at this. And I understand what we've been saying about this, but it just seems like a shame that it took 13 years to actually start to do something about this.
Well, when you mention how you noticed something, I think about Takara. She was clear in saying, you guys should have something that fits, or like this isn't working. And the moment she opened her mouth, they kick her out. Like I said, you have to ask yourself, am I going to stay with this and keep rolling with it? Or am I going to choose what I stand for and what I value and be like, deuces, and it'll work out for me? I have the faith that it'll work out for me. She took that road. We understand that a lot of the stuff is edited. They knew what they were doing in creating the stories. They had the background on these girls, right? And they use that against them. That's some diabolical stuff right there.
Yeah.
You know, here you are watching this, although I didn't know anything about it, but then you go out to have this little chat with the girls about cheating on your boyfriend and how he cheated on you. And, oh, did you knew exactly what you were doing. That's some diabolical stuff. Like that's a whole nother level. Forget intentions. She had left them intentions long time ago. Them
can we talk about that a little bit?
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because that also gets into the consent and this lack of consent when it comes to things like makeovers, when it comes to that Shandy situation. So let's talk about that. Go ahead.
This whole Shandy thing of it, like that whole segment was so disturbing, because and I blame the cameramen, the producers, the editors, the lawyers.
Sorry, can we go back? Just in case there's some people who don't know what we're talking about, can you kind of, in brief, explain that whole situation with Shandy?
Yeah, so Shandy, it started at the end of the first episode of the documentary and went to the second one where she was, I believe they were in Italy.
Yes.
They were in Italy, and they were around some of the other models, the male models that come back to their hotel. They had been drinking. She had been inebriated, and there was no sexual consent, but there was sex that happened that night without her consent, and it was videotaped. They recorded it. They watched it back. They edited it. Like I said, the producers saw it, and I'm sure the lawyers saw it, because as Tyra said, there were things that we couldn't even air that was edited out. This young girl was sexually assaulted on camera. It was edited for TV and shown around the world. And not only was it shown, they recorded, they forced her in a way to have a conversation with her boyfriend at the time, who was back in the States, to have a conversation to tell him that, she cheated on him. They created this narrative to say that, she was the one that initiated this, and that she basically did it, versus her being sexually assaulted. They took advantage of this young lady. No one took accountability. And I mean, this woman was traumatized over and over again. Even when Tyra had her own talk show, she brought this young girl back on her show. Shandy said to her, I don't want to see this. I've never seen it. I don't want to talk about this. And do you know, Tyra sat there with this young lady on her stage in front of her audience on TV and played the video of her sexual assault. Who does that?
Tyra
Banks.
We didn't have the language to call it gaslighting then, but she gaslit this young lady so hard. And not even just her, but so many of them. You want to talk about consent. I wonder, why were there no legal ramifications for even Danielle or even Joni when they tortured these women as far as their teeth are concerned? Like, how far is too far? How far was too far, even with the makeovers and everything too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is they didn't have a legal leg to stand on, because when you sign to say I'm going to be part of this show, you absolve them of responsibility for these things. It's up to you, I think, as an individual. Once you accept it, and I understand you feel pressured, you're young, there are all sorts of factors that go in there. But this is why we have to teach people to advocate for themselves. I don't think they could advocate for themselves, or felt that they could not advocate for themselves. But I think that's the whole thing, and that was the problem.
May I add a quick story? Just a real quick story, and I'm not sure if my dear friend Ma L is in there, but I remember talking to her about possibly signing up to do a reality TV show. Because keep in mind, if for a lot of us, just being on TV was like that 15 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And everybody's like, I just want my 15 minutes of fame, because it looked like it was something amazing. And I remember her saying, Gwendolyn, you don't want to do that, because they are going to edit you. They can either make you the villain, they can make you the angel, but your entire persona, life, everything is in their hands. You have no control whatsoever. And I thought, really? Because it's all like, they take stuff and it's all about telling a story. And we know, as people who do video and things, you tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it happens the way that you show it happening. Sometimes it does, but there is some editing in there. Even this documentary itself is edited. However, the words that came out of these people's mouths, there was never we really were awful people. Like, we know better than like, that was really awful. That didn't. They could have said that. They never said that.
I don't think they think they're awful. That is the thing. They don't think they did awful things. I'm sure they said they did. They think they did things that may have crossed the line, but there's always that was because, or back then we didn't, so there's never a reckoning with the awful things that they did. It's always because of something. There's always an antecedent. They had no choice. They couldn't stop it.
Well, I mean, they did talk about how, especially like Nigel and Mr. J, they talk about how sometimes they were uncomfortable in certain situations in photo shoots, but one, they didn't speak up then, and then they kind of like justify. And the one thing that kind of got me, as we've talked about this on our on Ronald's podcast, and we've had discussions and seen what other people are saying on social media. I remember when we first watched it, I kind of was like in the manner of, well, these guys had an opportunity to go after Tyra and make her the villain, and they didn't. But then when I really stand back and look at it, they were just as much the villains as she was. It's just that it's her name really on it. It was her brainchild, and she's going to take most of the flack. But these guys were just as complicit with what went on there.
Absolutely. She's the face of it. So she's going to get most of the flack. Most people probably didn't know who Ken Mock was until this documentary came out. Yeah. So you are insulated as a producer, as an executive producer, as a director, because nobody sees your face. Because Tyra Banks was out in front. She is the face of it. And as far as some people are concerned, she is America's Next Top Model. So when you hear a lot of the discourse about, oh, this was awful, you're not really hearing people that are not Tyra as much, if that makes any sense. You're not hearing the allegations being levied at other people as much, a little bit, but mostly Tyra because she's the face of it. So you're 100% right.
But can we also talk about the, I guess, social ramification of it being Tyra as well? It's always easier to blame the Black woman.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Because she is, quote unquote, at the forefront. Yes, Tyra was 100% wrong. I'm not giving her a pass in any type of way, but she was not the only one that was wrong, but the only person getting the flack is the Black woman. Look at Jada Pinkett and how she's villainized.
You're right. There is definitely a villainization of Black women, especially powerful Black women, when it comes to these things. And there is the tendency to push the blame on them. So let me ask you then, are you saying that if this was produced by a non-melanated person, that this blowback would not be as much? That part of this is because of who it is. Okay.
Absolutely. I even heard someone say, like, had this been Heidi Klum who took the helm of this, we would not be talking about this today. Had this been someone like Giselle Bundchen or anybody else but Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks is problematic. I am not giving her a pass whatsoever.
Can we hold on? Just to kind of go off of what you're just saying, can we talk about Janice Dickinson? I mean,
nobody's talking about her.
She was the worst one out of everyone on that panel. To the point where she was fired early on in the series. Janice Dickens was problematic from the very beginning. And no one is talking about her at all.
Again, because it's easier to focus on the Black woman, especially, and like you said, a Black woman in power, they're going to do everything. Even today, they're going to do everything to take her down.
Yep.
Go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say. Go ahead, and then we'll get to some comments.
All right. Okay. So, although I do believe in some situations that may be true, in this particular one, what she decided to say or not say didn't really help her case. Like, you can't say,
no, I know. I'm not giving Tyra a pass.
To do with that. I was only this, but then turn around and say, oh yeah, I was great at storytelling. I became a master editor. I was like, she didn't do herself any favors. Do I believe that it's only because she's a Black woman that they are going this hard? Nah, I'm not gonna say that. Like, I admired her, but having seen how she handled some of this stuff and knowing what she had at her disposal, I'm just like, it definitely hurts, because I think about what's the young lady who was on the photo shoot and had the three guys, and the one guy was clearly way beyond.
Yes.
This idea of being protected. Right. Even when she calls, what was it, Ebony? She calls her dark skin ashy. There's a certain thing where you're like, she's one of us. She gets it. She's been in my shoes. She has my skin. Surely she'll protect me. And that didn't happen. Yeah. Right. So now, do I believe that it's only because she's Black? No, because I think about, what's his name? Is it Dawson? Is it Richard Dawson from Family Feud? Is that his name?
Richard Dawson.
Is that all the kissing and stuff he did, and we know Bob Barker was doing some stuff, so we're upset about that too. It's not like we're not upset about all of it. We're mean all of it. I don't think it's only because she's a black woman. I don't.
But I think my point
she
too,
shared on
though,
the documentary did her no favors.
It didn't. And like I said, I'm not giving Tyra a pass at all. However, Tyra seems to be the only one catching the brunt of all of the hate when everybody is culpable and everybody is responsible. And then the problem is, too, subsequent this docuseries, now Mr. J wants to be talking about, he's trying to do damage control is what it seems like, because he's doing constant interviews and saying everything that he did not say in the interview or in the docuseries, because now he's seeing what everybody else is saying.
Absolutely.
I feel as though Miss J, bless her heart, with stroke and all, Nigel, everybody should be getting the same amount of heat that Tyra is getting, but Tyra seems to be getting most of it. And she deserves it, yes. However, it needs to be spread across the board, and it's just not.
I think part of that, though, is because she is the face and this was her show. I think this is another reason why Janice Dickinson, Janice Dickinson was deplorable, but she in the public eye is not seen as important of a character as Tyra is. Neither are the Jays or Nigel. They're seen as side characters to the main character. So what happens when you have a Voldemort? There may be other Voldemorts next to you, but the main one is going to get it. Now, that does not absolve her of anything that she did, but it is to say, and it doesn't absolve anybody else, but it is to say that she's probably getting most of the heat because she is the face, basically. Is that right? No, everybody deserves the heat, but I don't think that audiences understand enough about the process of production to say, oh, it's also you, and it's also you, and you did it too. They don't understand. It's Tyra's show, it's her fault. Let's take let's take a few. I'm loving this. We're going to start to wrap this up soon. We could never get to everything, but there are a couple of other things that I want to get to. Let's go on over to Instagram. Danny Stone is here, and hello, how are you? Also, Charlene, that's me. How are you? Charlene Austin says she remembers Sorority Sisters. It was a horrible show. Deplorable. Shelly Shells is here. Marissa Tigney is here. Hey, how are you? One Nice Girl has also joined us, and I know you're also on the other side, on the YouTube side. Eliza Bella Marie, welcome in. Thank you for being here. And also Divine Wright, the proprietor of the MediaScope food truck, is here. It is wonderful to see you. And if I'm missing you, please charge it to my head and not my heart, or the fact that I can't see. Now let's take a look over here. We have a lot of comments over here. Also, Dr. Christy Iwochukwu, hello, how are you? She's watching over on the Facebook side. It is wonderful to see you. Your mother is here, and she says, hello, how are you? And you said hello back to her. Classic C Gems also says this is interesting. Also have to consider who is writing or presenting these documentaries. What are their intentions, or who would be benefiting status or monetarily? Absolutely. That is a real consideration. Also, here we go. I don't know who you're talking about, but Kimmy says, I assume they're waiting for the fallout before speaking publicly. Let me know who you're referring to with that one. Keisha is here. Hello, and says, I was surprised to hear she was doing another cycle. I don't think there's a market for it. Back then, everyone wanted to model and it was a big thing, but the desire is there, but not as big as then. Now, here's the thing with this. You don't need a CW anymore to put your stuff out. So the times have changed. So all the stuff that you're trying to do and I think she was saying it metaphorically. I don't know if she actually meant it. Maybe she meant this cycle in her life as a cycle 25. I don't know. But the time for this type of thing is over. You can look at Pop the Balloon. Okay? It's a terrible show.
Never watched it. Never watched not one episode.
I haven't either. Well, no, that's not true. I've seen clips of this, but I think that Pop the Balloon is nothing more than a venue for black men and women to denigrate each other. I don't think, but if you watch it, do you, boo-boo? But the point is that it started on YouTube. It was after the point that it was picked up for Netflix. So the point is, media has changed, and what they did back then is not going to work now. And in fact, we don't need you like that. So that's that. All right. Let me. Oh, Ama Kofa is here. What's up? Hello from Texas. It is good to see you from the National Black Debutante Project. We'll do some more in just a moment. Let's talk a little bit about this. Do you think that America's Next Top Model created broken individuals, or were these broken individuals who came into America's Next Top Model?
I think it exacerbated traumas. I don't want to say they came into it broken. However, the things that production decided to do put their trauma on the forefront for entertainment. So I don't know if you could say it necessarily. I don't know if they came in broken and or left broken, outside of maybe Giselle. She seems to be dealing with some issues. But I don't know if that's a fair question, if I'm being honest. Because did it break them? And did they come in broken, or did it just make them face their traumas?
I think it just highlighted it. Whatever issues you had prior, it highlighted it. And then, I would say there are probably like one or two kind of standouts that were able to take their trauma, their pain, and to manifest into something else and actually propel themselves into a career. I look at Eva. I've always said that I've loved her story. She came from a rough, background, but she came in determined that she was going to be someone and make something out of herself. And look at her now. She's done all these other projects, but then also too, I saw that she did an interview on I forget what talk show or morning show.
Good Morning America.
Was it Good Morning America? So. Where she was saying, well, that was not my experience, and I didn't really know that a lot of that was going on. A lot of times I think though too, especially when you see a couple other cycles of it previously, you know what to expect in a certain degree, so you can kind of insulate and isolate yourself from a lot of that stuff. So, I think that all TV does, or what TV can do, is highlight you in a way. But don't get it wrong. These producers were master manipulators, because once they looked at the footage, they said, all right, well, this is this person's storyline, and let's make sure that we have it as a throughput as long as they're in here.
Absolutely. Ms. Gwendolyn?
I agree with that. I would say like every single person, in my opinion, is perfectly imperfect. And so depending on who you choose, like once you get them in the room or do an interview, whatever they do when they get their bio, you can decide how far can we push this person before they fall over, or will this person push back? That's how I see it. I agree with Chris. They had all the information that they needed. They started making the storyline. And depending on how far they could push somebody's button, they took it wherever they wanted to go. Some of them were like, I'm highly resilient. I'm going to push through no matter what. And then others were like, okay, this is just, I want to go home. I'm over it. But they knew what they were doing. And when you think about it that way, you can't help but say, this really is some jacked up stuff. It is jacked up. It's kind of like whenever you go to certain, and I'll say contests, whatever, or even jobs, they're looking for certain types. If you were the person who the first time they push that button and you bite back, they're like, okay, yeah, that person has to go. Because what we don't need is somebody who can rally the troops and get folks to not do what we want them to do.
Yeah.
From experience. I'm just saying.
So here's one thing to add on to this, and it was kind of talked about a little bit, but reality TV is not real. It is scripted to a certain degree, because you have producers telling you to say this, or they will steer the conversation in a certain direction. They'll stop taking recordings so that they can interject and say, we need you to do this and do that. Any reality star you see on TV now, once their series is up and they come out and just start talking, they say that, well, producers were telling me that I need to do this, or I need to say this to propel this narrative that they have. Because these producers know, basically, in a way, kind of even like who's going to be going home. a perfect example is when Tyra was the infamous tagline, "We were rooting for you." She was intended to win the series. Tyra so much said that, but because she didn't follow the narrative and didn't kind of do what they wanted her to do, it was like, you know what, you're gonna go home. But then on top of it, Tyra had this whole big blow up, and I'm still curious to this day what was said and what was left on the cutting room floor that we did not hear during that situation, because we all know that after that, the following day or week, whenever they recorded, they had lawyers present in the room during the judging. Why would you need a lawyer? Why would you need lawyers in the room after that? Something else was said. I'm really interested to know what that thing was.
Can I say to Gwendolyn's point, they knew who to mess with, because I think about contestants like Ferranda. They knew not to mess with her. She made it so far, and like you said, they pushed her out the door. I want to say top 5, top 4, because they knew they could not get anything more out of her. The same thing with Yaya DaCosta, which I'm surprised she was not mentioned. She was runner up to Eva. Yaya was strong the entire series, even when it came down to the hat and the kente cloth of it all. If anybody remembers that, they knew who to mess with and who to push. So to your point about broken individuals, I think they knew who to pick on and what story they could get out of them. There are certain contestants that came in strictly to be a model on the show, and those contestants didn't get the storyline. They didn't get the big to do because they knew not to mess with those women.
Absolutely. There were some they knew they could push the envelope with, and others not. Absolutely. So, you know what we're going to do? We'll take some comments and then we'll go to final thoughts on it. There are never any final thoughts on this. As final as we could get for right now, because we've been on for an hour and 11. I said we were going to go do an hour and 15. So this is good. Let's see. So Beverly says Eva was being bullied while on the show to the point of tears, as resilient as she was. And I guess she loved Eva. Let's see. Classic Gems says, as a young girl, I was so happy when Eva won because it was the first time I saw models of color on screen. Besides your parents, okay, and a positive show. Models of color on besides parents. I get it. Now understand lots may have been going on behind the scenes. Absolutely. We don't know, like, this is even just a scratch of the surface of everything that happened. This was 13 years of balderdashery that was golden. And that's not a word, but I made it one. That was going on. So we have no clue at all. Let's see. Also, Dr. Vibe, how are you? Welcome in. Thank you so much for being here. And hold on, let's make sure that we got Bashia is here. Hey, Bashia, I've known her since when I lived in DC, so I've known you for a while. How are you, Bashia? Thank you so much for being here. One nice girl says over on Instagram she was off the chain. That's why they got rid of her. And they are blaming her in the interviews. Mimi Hinton is here. How are you? One nice girl also says Eva did an interview on CBS this morning with Gayle King and crew. She should have been in the documentary. So let me ask this of you. Who do you think should have been in the documentary that was not?
I had mentioned Yaya. I feel like Yaya would have had a lot to say. She said a lot on social media without even saying anything. Just her, if you watch her post, I don't know if anybody follows her. She's actually a talented actress as well.
Yeah.
But Yaya has had a lot to say without really saying much. So I think she would have been good for the docuseries. Eva would have been good for the docuseries. The first winner, Adrienne, she said she wanted nothing to do with it, but has had a lot to say on social media. There were a lot of girls that could have said something. Takara was missing.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think anyone's picking up on this, but do you know that the people that were not included in the series were people that went on to have successful acting and modeling careers afterwards?
Yeah.
The majority of the people that were in this documentary might not have necessarily had that great of a career. You know, people went back to their lives that they had prior to coming there. And of course, we know that there's going to be another documentary series on E that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. So, and I think we're going to get more of
A lot of the models
backstories.
a lot of the models are coming on the E special.
Yeah. So we'll hear more about that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. G, are there any? Okay, no.
I watched, I want to say I may have watched maybe 3 or 4 seasons. I'm not going to lie to you. Because at a certain point I was like, I'm not getting it. Like Chris, I was looking for the photography. I was looking for where they were going to go with the, hey, so-and-so just won. I was looking for those first winners to see where they were in the fashion industry. And when they just weren't popping up, I thought, okay, so now what? And I'm like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. Like I'm only good for so much of the tomfoolery shows. And then I'm just like, it doesn't land well. So there are a lot of people who have a great deal to say. The question is, do you want to go back to that? Like if it really was traumatizing for you, not that Shandy, in my opinion, has gotten over what she has experienced. I don't believe me. There's still a lot of work there, in my opinion. But you have to ask yourself, do I want to go there? Do I want to bring that up again? Do I even want to think about it? And it is possible for people to be in the same room and have 2 different experiences. That happens all the time. I mean, we have, siblings. It's like, do we have the same parents? I mean, I'm just not understanding.
Yes.
But we know that happens. Someone can have a great experience. Someone can have a so-so. And it just may be, I don't even want to talk about that because I don't want to talk about it.
That's an important point because not all the contestants had the same experience. Some weren't even long enough to have whoever was eliminated first, you probably weren't there long enough to have as varied experiences as some of the other contestants. So you're 100% correct. Everyone has a different experience. I think, though, I do want to say this, that as much as I do not excuse Tyra for any of this, to your question, of some of the people you wanted to see or to your point of some of the people you wanted to see, I think they were also trying to frame a narrative of Tyra being very villainous. Now, don't get me wrong. She's a villain. But I think that was exactly the point of this documentary as well. Not just to tell the stories of these people, but also to frame her as a villain, as villainous. Because some of these other people that are doing well, that doesn't mean you didn't experience anything, but that also doesn't necessarily fit the narrative that they were trying to frame. Now you have this person, oh, I was essayed on film, or oh, this happened. I broke my ankle. They shaved my tooth. They widened my gap. They made me close my gap. Some of these more traumatic stories, we like to watch trauma, unfortunately. So I think that was also the framing of why they picked who they picked.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, we definitely want to give some light and some shine for our wonderful panelists and give you where you can follow them. Let's start with Ronald and Chris up at the top. So we're going to, since Ron is first, we're going to put your card up first. You could tell us where you would like people to follow you. I think I tried to find where people can follow you on my own, but let's see. Here we go. So
I'm mostly only on Instagram and YouTube right now. So you can follow me at Instagram at _Ronald Thomas _ You can find me at YouTube at RTC Music. You can see my podcast, the Wait What Podcast. It comes out on Saturdays. You can stream it wherever you get your podcast, minus Apple, because Apple is still trash. I say that on every episode because some reason it won't let me upload it. It won't let me upload the show to Apple. However, Spotify, Amazon, RSS.com, you can get the Wait What Podcast. And that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. All right. So over to you, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm on all the socials. I'm primarily over on Instagram at constantly _changing the number for me, all one word. On YouTube, it's constantly changing for me. Same thing at Threads, and then also on Blue Sky. So yes, follow me on there, and then also you can find me on the original conference call where I do the show with my husband Ronald.
Yes, that
and
too.
PJ.
My bad.
We put out a recap show twice a week. Mondays we do Drag Race, and then also on Wednesdays we're wrapping up this season of Traders. We're gonna record the last episode this weekend, and it'll come out on Monday. And then also, on my channel, I do my show that airs here on the Indie Soup Network, Safe Space. We're on hiatus right now, but follow me on YouTube and all the socials.
Fantastic. And we're going to take it over to our friend Gwendolyn, friend to the show. Gwendolyn, tell us how we can find you.
Well, I'm on YouTube. Primarily, I am on YouTube. So GR Houston Jack. I do have things auto post to Instagram under Black Power Bunny. And then anything I am working on, you can find it on Linktree or grhjack.com. That's where Gwendolyn gets down. And if I have the chance, can I just have like one last thought?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something to take home with people, something people to take home, I should say, and nibble on or chew on. I know that they're all, in this regard, people who were all involved, did some awful things. However, knowing that these young ladies were never going to get this major contract with like elite models or any kind of modeling agency, you have to ask yourself, why would you keep, presenting that as a prize, knowing that that prize didn't exist? Like, you knew it didn't exist. That's some shady shit. It is, right? You are preying on young women's dreams of being in this beautiful world, which I've been in the background, walked in, Anna Swede, Norma Kamali, all the people. It's a beautiful world. It's so enticing. And you knew what you were offering them didn't exist. That's it just sits differently now. Cause I thought it was real. I thought it was real, and it was never real. And you knew it, and you kept going anyway. That's look.
Yeah, it's kind of some Bernie Madoff stuff, right?
Very much Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme. You're investing in this and you think, and then it doesn't materialize. So, and it's terrible because these are people who really wanted it, who probably really thought this was an avenue for them to get into the industry when it was actually a hindrance at that time. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. In case anybody cares, this is me. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Well, it is. And I always forget about me. So I said, I'm intentional this time. You could reach me on Linktree. All of my stuff is there. YouTube is my big platform. Make sure you're following me on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. And you can also get at me on Instagram if you want to send me a message. And of course, Indie Soup Media we are broadcasting on Indie Soup now as well. That is the network that we all built, an independent network for independent content creators. So make sure that you visit us, indiesoupmedia.tv, and we are Indie Soup Media on all social media platforms. And with that, we're going to go. We're going to let you all get some dinner. Thank you all so much for joining us, for letting us have our say about this. We had to say something about it. So hopefully you got something out of it. Where somebody had a comment that I wanted to say. Oh, Charlene Austin said, this was an amazing show. I'm glad you discussed America's Next Top Model. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, Bari Cubana, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for being here. And let's see, do we have any final? Yeah, we got some final stuff from, okay, you do care. Thank you. Thank you. Ope is here. Ope is an amazing, she works in fashion as well. She does a lot with fashion and AI. Thank you so much for being here. And again, happy belated birthday. And let's see, Classic C Gem says, informative episode as well. Learn something new every day. Good. And Beverly Campbell says, wonderful show. Have a good night. You as well. And hey, Lena, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for the show. I didn't see you here earlier, but thank you for being here. And, we have a show that we three of us need to do. So that's coming up soon. Look for that. And with that, I am going to let you all go, and we're going to end the way we always end. I love you for watching. I bid you adieu. You guys, myself, and these wonderful panelists and America's Next Top Model, we're exiting stage left. So until we come back from sabbatical, cheers.